Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time of the week again, so sit down, grab your popcorn and a nice cold brew because it's time for the weekly review roundup. So this week I'm coming back with two movies that I'm going to review that I watched over this past week. It was a very hectic week with my Washington Capitals winning the Stanley Cup Finals finally, and having a really busy work schedule all over the place. I was able to sit down and watch two movies, but also when we get to the back half of this video, there's a lot of news, and even more specifically, a lot of horror movie news that I want to talk about that I think are really going to play into where horror movies go over the next couple of years, and then I think it's going to be really important to the industry. So without further ado, let's hop into the first movie that I watched this weekend, and that is Dark Tower. Now, Dark Tower is a Stephen King-based movie that is about this fantasy world. Well, it's more about how there's multiple dimensions that all kind of sit on top of each other, and there's this central being, this tower, that kind of holds the dimensions together and keeps things, evil things that are outside of these dimensions from getting in. So, getting into the spoiler-free section of it, you have Idris Elba playing the gunslinger, which is your protagonist, along with Jake, who's the child, who's your protagonist. Then you have Matthew McConaughey playing the man in black, who's your antagonist. Spoiler-free review, Matthew McConaughey plays a wizard, a sorcerer, if you will, and the CGI and special effects for his magic used throughout the movie, what in the world? Like, for a movie that you would expect to have thrown just a bunch of money at it, it's a Stephen King movie. They have the resources, they have the ability to do it, and the CGI falls really short. It looks really terrible. It looks like an early to mid 2000s movie. It does not look good. This is a movie that came out in 2017, where we're at the peak of computer graphic technology, and the fact that this magic looks so bad really draws away and pulls back a lot of positives about the movie. Without getting into the details of any of the plot, Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey are definitely the key points of the movie that they wanted you to focus on. The only problem being is that it feels like they wrote the movie before getting those two to sign on, and I understand that in the process you write a script and you propose it to an actor, but when you get talent such as Idris Elba or Matthew McConaughey, once you propose a script and you get them to sign on, you should probably go back and maybe rewrite or tweak a few things or allow improvisation in the script when you have two actors of that high of a caliber. And they didn't do it. They wrote these incredibly simplistic characters that could have been played by C-list, no-name television actors, and they could have done incredible jobs in it, but they got these A-listers, and when you get them, you have to write the part to fit the person. Like, you have to write up to the level of the acting, and that did not happen at all. The whole movie feels really forced and really awkward because these lines are written so simple and with very little emotion, coming from two of my favorite actors in Hollywood. Like, you could tell this dilemma plays into the CGI because all of the money that they threw at McConaughey and Idris Elba to get them to sign on to the movie should have gone back towards the special effects to make the magic in the movie look like it belongs in a movie from 2017. So, spoiler-free review, I'd probably sit down and give it maybe a 4. Like, there's still positive things about it. The story is still told pretty well. There's a couple really cool moments in it, a couple really cool action scenes. They do a decent little job of trying to world build. It doesn't do its part. It doesn't do it the best way possible, but you kind of get the gist of it, and there is this fantasy sense throughout the whole movie. So, without spoiling any of the plot, I'd give it a 4 out of 10. But, spoiling the plot, what in the world? Like, the last 20 minutes of this movie are so rushed and so fast-paced to finish the whole movie in time to make it about 90-minute runtime, which is, prime runtime for a movie like that. They put so much of the plot line into the last 20 minutes that you're sitting there just confused at why everything is happening so fast. Like, what in the world? Like, all of a sudden, someone pulled out the brakes in the car and it's just breaking down the hill. Like, it's going at a breakneck speed down the hill. and it just kind of ruins the whole thing. For the first hour of it, while Idris and Matthew McConaughey seem out of place, there's a plot that's building up, and you start to get to a point where you're going to feel, oh, the climax is coming, it's going to be a big fight, it's going to be awesome. The big fight lasts for about 2 minutes, if even. The last, 3 minutes out of the last 10 are the huge fight in the movie that's supposed to happen. Why build up to something if you're not going to follow it through completely? This big fight just completely comes out of nowhere, goes ahead and starts, and then the abrupt ending of him killing the man in black. It was a cool moment to see him bounce one bullet and then bounce the bullet off the other bullet. There were some really cool gun moments in this movie. The long shot through the houses and through the laundry into the cornfields to save Jake. Some of the shots that he pulls bouncing off of stuff when he's fighting the man in black. There's a couple cool moments in the action scenes in the last 20 minutes of it, but it's so fast-paced as opposed to the rest of the movie, and it makes it awful. Like, it makes you not want to watch it at all. And coming out of that movie, I would not recommend it to anybody who's read the books. You'll just get upset. Like I said earlier, it was a 4 out of 10. It was a lot of wasted talent, a lot of wasted storyline, and just a mess. Like, it was an honest-to-God mess. So the other movie that I watched this weekend, and this will kind of go along with some of the news that I want to talk about, is I went back and watched the good old 2006 version of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the Tim Burton version with Johnny Depp playing Willy Wonka. I forgot how fun this movie is. I grew up with this movie. I watched it a shit ton of times when I was younger, so I saw it a lot. And I forgot how much fun it actually is. It was in that time period, like I talked about with Queen of the Damned, where it was on the back half of that time where everything had to have CG in it, everything had to have zany computer graphics in it, and this movie did a good job of putting that in there, but also there were a lot of practical effects in the movie. The sets, the costumes, all of that was made. Like, the inside of his factory, not all of it was animated. Like, it was made, and it looked awesome. Like, for having this juxtaposition of outside the factory, everything being bleak and black, white, and gray and no color, and as soon as they step into it, there's just color everywhere, and it's amazingly vibrant, and it looks beautiful on screen. Spoiler-free review. If you don't know the ending to Willy Wonka by now, you've been living under a rock or in a cave for about 50 years, so you have a problem, but I'll keep along with my traditions that I've built. Spoiler-free review. I would give this one probably a 6 out of 10. I mean, I don't think it holds the same aura as the original. I think the original is a little bit more fun and a little bit more iconic in cinema history. But I think that this one has its positive qualities. I think that Johnny Depp plays the definition of a 2000s Willy Wonka, just being all over the place, being random and quirky, being, odd, and almost to a point of looking like just weird. Like, even when you see him, you're kind of weirded out. You don't expect what's going to happen. So, I'd give it a 6 out of 10. Now, getting into the spoiler section of it, it's still good. It still holds up. I was surprised to see that the CG in the movie still holds up now as compared to when it came out. There's a lot of really good performances in this. Like I said earlier, Johnny Depp plays this absolutely insane, random, quirky, enigmatic Willy Wonka that just is awesome to watch on screen. I mean, he's so goofy that every now and again you'll be like, that was a terrible joke, but you still catch yourself laughing. The performance of, what's the guy's name? I think it's Deep Roy, who does all the Oompa Loompas in the movie, was awesome. The songs throughout kind of throw people off because while there was music involved in the original, they wanted to do original music for this one, so none of the songs were the same. There's a couple really cool moments in the songs that are these big, grander, big band, instrumental type deals, but they feel way too goofy and planned out, so falls flat. The songs in it kind of fall flat, and it kind of takes away from the movie. But I still enjoyed it. Like, I mean, it still has all that childish fun. Even now that I'm 21 years old and it's been, 5 years since I watched that movie the last time, I still found myself having just as much fun watching it now as I did when I was younger. And it kind of caught me off guard because I was like, oh, I'm going to watch this and this is going to suck. It's not going to feel anything like when I used to watch it. And it still did. It still had that air about it. Two things I want to say about it that are just kind of personal and not really even knocks on it in a review, just kind of funny things to point out. Number one, like the guys on Lights Camera Podcast said on Barstool, the bed that the grandparents sleep in is easily one of the most disgusting places you'll ever see in a movie. Like, they don't get up ever, so it's probably just nastiness underneath there. And two, why do they always make it... Why does Augustus Gloop get involved in this? Like, the little guy just wanted to eat some chocolate. Like, why did they have him be the first to go, talk about how greedy he is? He's not greedy. The boy just wanted to eat some chocolate. You put him in this huge factory and you put a chocolate river in front of him and you expect him not to try it? Like, I think that those are just two kind of goofy moments that go into the magic of Willy Wonka. But like I said earlier in the spoiler-free section, it was a 6 out of 10. I enjoyed myself a lot. Now, news coming from this movie. They're currently planning a Willy Wonka project that I think is supposed to land somewhere around 2020. There was a short list that came out that may be true, may not be true. Ryan Gosling, Donald Glover, and Ezra Miller are apparently a short list to play Willy Wonka in what could possibly be a prequel, could be a reboot, could be some form of a sequel, nobody knows yet. It's being labeled as a prequel right now. It could be rearranged and everything. And I love the idea of a reboot. With modern technology, today's CG, and a couple of the actors that are in Hollywood right now, I would love for them to remake it. Like, it would look breathtaking. There are a couple people in Hollywood right now who could play that charismatic enigma that is Willy Wonka. My mom and I both agreed it would be interesting to see Benedict Cumberbatch, or as I call him, Benedude Cumbersnoozle, take his shot at it. I think that he's kind of teetering on that edge that he could pull it off. And like I said, with the graphics and everything we have now, the scenes inside of the factory would be so vibrant. It would just be beautiful. Doing a prequel to this of how Willy Wonka became Willy Wonka, I don't know if I would want it because they'd probably try to make it super gritty and I wouldn't really appreciate it. And doing a sequel to it is not a good idea because the sequel book to this is absolutely insane. Talking about going out into space in the glass elevator, finding a hotel in space, fighting off space aliens, meeting the president, not a good idea. It will not work as well with a movie. And with the three people that they talked about, Ezra Miller does not... I appreciate what he's doing right now with the Flash character and what he's done in other things. I don't think he has the presence to carry a movie like you have to if you play Willy Wonka. Ryan Gosling definitely has the acting chops to do it. I don't think that he's crazy enough to do it. I don't think that he's enigmatic and off the wall enough to do it. I think Donald Glover could pull it off. I think that he's odd enough to do it if it was a reboot. It wouldn't be as good as other people, but I think he could pull it off. But it's just... I want a reboot so bad, but I don't want it to be any of those three off the top of my head. And I don't want a prequel or a sequel. Like, this has so much potential if they reboot it. So, that's the news pertaining to Willy Wonka. Now, some other news that is specifically horror-based. The Halloween trailer dropped, and holy shit, this is going to be awesome. Like, I know a lot of people are on either side of this saying, why are we getting another one of these? Or they're saying that it looks amazing. I'm on the amazing side. I think that this movie, even just from the 3-minute trailer, I think it's going to capture the grit and the intensity that we get from the Rob Zombie ones without the gore, without the vulgarity, without everything that was in those that drove people away. I think it's going to capture that grit and that grind and that edge that they had and bring it back to the original story. I mean, this is one that's bypassing all the sequels. There's a 40-year gap between the original and this one. None of the sequels are canon. Laurie Strode and Michael aren't related. And let me just tell you, Jamie Lee Curtis playing a Laurie Strode who's going to be an absolute, like, psychotic, paranoid badass is going to be awesome on screen. Just the scene of her just unloading that gun into that target got me so ready to watch this movie. I'm very excited for it. I think it's going to take it in a similar direction that we've seen, just not to the extremes. I think it's going to pull a little bit of that grit and that grind from Rob Zombie's, and I think it's going to pull a little bit of that classic, suspense and everything from the original. So I'm very excited about this movie, and that's just off of the first 3-minute trailer. I'm super excited to see where this movie goes and how it will pull along better remakes of some of those old 80s and 70s slashers. The other horror news that I want to talk about is this Addams Family animated movie. I know some people will be excited because we haven't seen much Addams Family in a long time, and they're a horror staple. They're the family horror movie. Like, you can show it to anybody, really. It's just kind of a creepy, kooky Halloween type deal. No pun intended. But an animated movie in 2018 of Addams Family, when you have talented actors who could redo it live action, I don't want it. Like, I've told everybody in my family, I don't want it at all. I'm not ready for this. Eventually, when it comes out, I'm going to see it. Yeah, I am. I love the Addams Family movies, so I'm going to go see the movie. But I don't want it. Like, with the success of Hotel Transylvania, why not just continue on that series? Why try to redo this classic in a way that's not going to be able to carry it? It's not going to be a method for them to continue on the legacy of the Addams Family. Animated is not the route to go with this family. I think that part of the draw to them is how odd they look being still live action people. And when you animate it, of course you can make features even more grotesque, even more oddly proportioned, everything. But then that's going to pull away from it. It's just going to become a monster movie, and that's not what I want out of them. These are supposed to be the people on the edge of society that are so close to being monsters, but they're not. They're still normal people. And I think that all this movie's going to be is it's just going to feel like another Hotel Transylvania movie. Like, why not just pump more money into Hotel Transylvania 3, which I think is supposed to come out at some point here soon, instead of just trying to reboot this movie in a terrible way. I don't know. There are probably people who are excited for it, people who watched it when they were younger that are excited that their kids will be able to see it. There's going to be some good voice acting in it, I think. They'll probably put people on it that are good, but I just don't want it. Like, I'll watch it, but I don't want it at all. I'm sorry, I don't want this movie at all. But, yeah. That news kind of irked me. Most of the time I get pretty excited about horror movies coming out in Hollywood, even if they're going to be bad, but that's one that I'm not ready for and that I don't think I want. So, just another disappointment in the works. Alright guys, well thank you for tuning in. I know that I switched things up a little bit and I cut one movie off the end to just talk about a couple of news article things, and I'm going to try to do that in the future. I want to keep doing my movie reviews every single week, but I want to start adding in other things. I'm thinking about starting, news, thinking about maybe doing the idea of doing some drunk reviews. I think that would be absolutely hilarious. Try to expand into other genres other than horror, but, focus on horror, maybe split off, maybe do, like, a weekly horror and then a weekly normal. I just want to keep on expanding and giving you guys more things about my thoughts. It's the best way to just relay them, and we always need to talk about movies. Movies will be controlled by the producers if we don't continue to talk about them. We have to talk about them to make them into what we want them to be. So, again, thanks for watching. Subscribe. Like the video if you agree with some of the things I said. If you don't, comment, leave it down there. We can debate it out. If you guys have any suggestions, DM me on Instagram, comment down below, DM me on Twitter. I'm always open to suggestions. And again, thanks for watching, guys.